This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and today I have one of my most requested guests to have back over the past few years. He was one of my first ever interviews, also one of my trainers, four-time WWE Tag Team Champion, even though one of those times is not counted, and former WWE Intercontinental Champion, the Mountie, Jacques Rougeau. How are you today, sir?
What a ring announcer there, Devin. I got to tell you, by the way, I'd like to give my regards to the whole family of Howard Finkel. As you know, we just passed away, and new Intercontinental Champ. It was amazing working with him and all those moments. And thanks for the introduction. But Devin, I want to take also the time yes, you were one of my students at one time, and I see what you're doing in life, and you're amazing. Your podcasts are amazing. You're fighting still. You're active still. You look good. You should be in Hollywood, Devin.
Well, I appreciate that. And speaking of Howard Finkel, I did notice from your social media posts, it seems like that one hit you a little harder than some of the other wrestling deaths. What was the connection you had there with him?
Howard Finkel was a guy who was very diplomat. He didn't have any enemies. He treated everybody with respect. I remember last time I was with him, like about 2 years ago. I was with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. We were in Manchester, London, and he was there also for that Comic Con. And we flew back together on that flight from London, England, Heathrow Airport to Montreal, and because he was going back to New York. And the things that he said, every time you sat down with him, he was, oh, Jacques, it's very nice what you did. He was always talking nice about everybody. I never heard Howard Finkel say anything negative about anybody, and I think that followed him, and on the long time, because on the long run, I don't know how long he was there, but he was there when I was there in 85 when I came in WWF, and he was there. I think he was there from the beginning, if I'm not mistaken.
I heard he was the very first employee of the WWE, official employee. So,
Wow. He's a great guy, Devin. He was a great guy. You never had a chance to meet him?
no, I never met him.
You would have loved him. He's a class act, a consideration, but almost like also an icon. Not almost an icon. He was on, like in boxing, you had this guy called Buffer, Michael Buffer, there when he
Oh,
announced
yeah.
in boxing,
Yeah.
and yet Howard Cosell. I don't think you're old enough to know Howard Cosell there,
He
but
interviewed Muhammad Ali. I remember that some of those interviews.
yeah, Howard Cosell was the greatest too, and Howard Finkel in wrestling, he was the best that ever came, I guess.
Now, I guess you're in your Winnebago now. You've been traveling around the US and Canada. Do you want to just fill us in on some of your travels? You've been all over the place.
Oh wow, Devin! Listen, in my career, 42 years of professional wrestling, I've seen pretty much every city, every town, every country on the planet. But what I did see was dressing rooms and hotels and gyms and airports and arenas, and I never had a chance to do anything else because in every time we landed, we had such a hectic schedule. So I decided. I said I would like to. There were so many nice things I didn't have a chance to see when we were on the road. Sometimes we were sitting in the dressing room, and then the officers would come in and say, "Hey guys, did you go see Colorado Springs, or did you go see this place or that place, or Pier 39 in San Francisco, or this?" And we never had time to see nothing. So we decided, my girlfriend and I, to make this trip. And the funny thing is it didn't cost that much, Devin, because we spent the 5 months that we did in national parks, and that's the great things about the United States. I got to tell you, uh, the national parks are free. So we'd come with the Winnebago and we'd drive in and we'd spend a week there. No electricity, no water either, but I have a generator on my Winnebago, so that would give me electricity, and I have a big tank of water, of course. And once a week, we'd go empty the Winnebago and fill with propane and go back in the mountains. So we were by ourselves for like 5 months, but on the way, we stopped and saw some places that were just amazing. Like, I'm not going to say them all, Devin, but I'm going to mention a couple of them if you don't mind. I'm thinking of Corolla Beach. It's not a good time to say the word Corolla, but Corolla Beach there in North Carolina, where the Mustangs and the horses run the beaches. They're wild and free, and we were camping right there on the beach, and it's something that you see in movies, and seeing all the coast, the Gulf of Mexico, and what about Las Cruces, New Mexico? Las Cruces, New Mexico. I never heard about that city, and it's almost like Salt Lake City. It's high in altitude, and Denver, all those places. But we took the Winnebago and we went in the national park, and it was amazing because the first nights we were there, the coyotes would come really close to the Winnebago because there's nobody. We were really alone. And we were afraid. I don't know if you heard a bunch of coyotes together, but they're pretty scary. And but by the end of the trip, we were almost friends with them, and it's amazing because my when we passed through Vegas, I had the kids come and meet us for Christmas, and so we did the loop, Los Angeles, San Diego, and I brought them to a few places, Santa Monica Pier, and a couple of places. But all that to say that I couldn't stop to tell you how much it was fun to no schedule, just to get up when you want to, and to go to bed when you want to, and to see the countryside, so the road runners. Like, since I've been young, I knew the coyote and the road runner, beep beep. And but when we started seeing road runners, they were going right by the Winnebago, and we were chasing them, like, with our bikes. We try to
Yeah.
find them and see them up close. And if you go on in Las Cruces, and you go west on Highway 10, you'll see just when you leave the city a big, big coyote. It must be like a statue of coyote, a roadrunner. I mean, a roadrunner. And when I saw the roadrunner, and after living all those things, it's amazing. You get to live a real life with the nature all the time. One morning we woke up, and there was a deer, like a big, big deer, right by the door. And it's things. I'm not a hunter, so for me, I never seen a deer from close, or really that close. And so all that stuff was amazing. And we stopped in New Orleans. New Orleans was awesome because we the what you call the bayous there, and the bridges, like everything's underwater there. It's bridges, New Orleans. But we stopped at the rest areas, and just stopping at a rest area one time, we're just taking a break, and there's a big alligator line, right by the pier. And I'm going like this, honey, you want to take a swim? But all those things that we saw. Then we got to San Diego. That was amazing. Just before we got to San Diego on the Pacific coast, I'd say about 10 miles north of San Diego, the seals, they come and they have a special place where all the seals, they come, and people are right there, and they're laying on the beach in front of you, and they're playing. And it's just things that you would see on Untamed World, or you'd see on things on TV. And so when you see them live like that, it's amazing. And Santa Monica, I've seen so many movies where the big wheel and the pier and the California girls and all. I shouldn't say
Oh
that,
yeah.
but anyway, all that good stuff. And I was there with Cedric, my boy, and also we had a couple of kids with us. It was amazing, Natalie's kids, and it was amazing to see the United States as a tourist instead of a worker.
And you even crossed over into Mexico at one point, didn't you?
Incredible, incredible. You mean this is movie stuff, like I gotta tell you what happened there in Juarez. It's amazing. We were in El Paso. Actually, it's the bridge across El Paso, and I wanted to just, for the fun of it, take my Spider, my bike there. I got a bike, a three-wheel bike. It's a Spider, and I wanted to ride into Mexico, just to send that to my Facebook friends at home to say, hey, Juarez, bienvenidos and all that. And what trip we had there. Like when we came in from El Paso, so easy. Just, hi, how you doing? Okay, bienvenidos. That was it. And then when we tried to come back, there was some construction there in Juarez. And the bridge to come back, it was like a 5-mile long traffic of 4 or 5 cars wide, just trying to cut each other in. But we were trying to come some rough corners. You'd probably feel comfortable, but I didn't. And it was like a lot of Mexicans that were looking at me funny. And it was like they didn't have any smiles on their face either. And it was like, so we were trying to get out of there. We wanted to go back to El Paso. And couldn't do it, couldn't find it. So finally, I stopped at a house, and we were in a neighborhood where all the houses were built with fences around them, like 10 feet fences. So I see this guy outside doing his plant. So I stop by, and he sees I'm very friendly, and he also sees that I need help. We're trying to get back, and every road that people are taking us, like they're telling us a la derecha, a la bienes, and we were taking all but it was never the right road. And then finally, we got scared. And I didn't tell my girlfriend I was scared, but she was telling me she was scared. And I was like, okay, well, I said, let's find a cop and he'll help us. So we find this police, and he says that we explained to him. So he says, follow us. So he takes us to this shortcut through an alley, a dark little alley. And we end up right in front of the bridge, like the crossover. So we're so happy. We're starting to see the customs and everything. Like finally we're going to make it. But you know what? There's 4 rows of car that have been waiting for like 3-4 hours. So when we tried to cut in, they wouldn't let us in. I swear, Devin, they were looking at us like, ¿Qué pasa? Nada, ándale. And I was looking, my girlfriend was starting to get afraid. And finally, I cut in front of anybody anyway. Like after 3-4 cars, they wouldn't let us go by. I kept telling the guy, the policia brought us here. Like, the police brought us here. And the guy would look at me. I remember one guy in the corner said, "Tu esta no policia." Like, you're not a police. I almost said, "I am the Mountie." No,
Yeah.
but I wasn't in my gear. So, but anyway, he says, "You're no police." So I said, "Okay." I said, "Yes, I am the police. The police helped us." So finally we got back. And when we got back, we were really, really happy to get back. But what a trip. To see the Donald Trump wall and all that good stuff there. We went to visit it close. So many beautiful things. I love the United States of America when I'm not working for someone over there. I love it. It's a beautiful place to go.
You didn't trust bringing the Winnebago across to Mexico then.
Nope. Hey, I got to tell you a funny story too, Devin, just between you and I. My girlfriend and I, we work out a lot. We're in shape. Like we do a lot of bicycling. When we got to Las Cruces on the way back from Vegas, we're coming back now. We're talking about maybe January, or we're doing those bike rides up in the mountains in high altitude. And you know what it is, Devin, when you work out in high altitude. There's no air. You're looking for air. But my girlfriend, she's very, very proud. And especially being 10 years younger than me, she certainly wants to be up front. But on that day, something happened, and and the way she looked at me when I went by her on the bike, I was so proud. It's like I'm always last. And that was like I passed her and I'm going, "Oh yeah, baby. Come on, baby." And by the time I had about a half a mile in front of her, I realized what was happening. I turned back around, and she was telling me the first thing she told me, she says, "I got to go to the hospital." And I looked at her, and boy, she treadmills, and she runs for an hour. She's in great shape. And so we went, and now she's stuck with a pacemaker. She had an El Paso. She had to they operated on her, and the whole thing. It was like it was horrible that thing happened, but anyway, so that was part of the trip. And so we took about a month and a half to come back. And that's when we discovered a lot of Texas, Corpus Christi, Brasilia beaches, all those places, because she needed to rest. And so we were on the beach with the Winnebago. It's almost like Daytona Beach. You could go on the beach with your vehicle. So that was fun. We were right by the beach, and now she's great. We're starting to walk again. But that was an experience that kind of put a little stop to the great vacation there, but now everything's good. So just to know everything's good.
I'm happy to hear that. And you're in the news this week. Your Dino Bravo episode of Dark Side of the Ring just aired last night. What was your experience like being part of that documentary, and what did you think of the final product?
Wow, 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 wow. Where do I start? Well, I wish everybody to go see the show Dark Side of the Ring with Dino Bravo. Uh, it's an amazing story. Dino Bravo was brought up with us with Ricky Martel and the whole crew from Quebec, but Dino was a guy who never mixed his business Like, I only knew that he was married to the Catroni's daughter, which Catroni is like the big mafia in those days in Montreal, the biggest mafia. He was married to the daughter. But when he came to the Paul Sauvé Arena or the Forum or Montreal or everywhere else in the business, he kept it secret. We never knew. He never brought the business. So I learned a lot of stuff, and I'm sure you learned a lot of stuff too when you saw that documentary. Some not so nice things, and but it was a mystery for us here. And I love the show. I was so grateful that they chose me first of all to talk on that show, because it was good exposure for me. I'm having emails and letters from across the world. People are, you have no more hair, or stuff like that, But they were glad to see me, and they were very happy to speak. It was awesome. So it was great exposure. It gives me light also, because I do a lot of uh, conferences now, not only for the kids in schools, but I mean making a living, like a humor conference, like a stand-up comedy conference, and so that brings a lot of publicity for me, because a lot of more people see you, the better chance you have after that to get a job, or to get let's be honest, or to be wanted, just to be wanted on a show. And so I've done a couple. I did the Tennessee Stud also, Ron Fuller, which I think you did too, if I'm not
Oh yeah.
mistaken, and did a couple of interviews lately. I did the after. And there's one interview that's coming on next week also, Devin. It's awesome. It's called After Dark Side of Wrestling. Like, they have the show that they had yesterday, Dark Side of the Ring, and
Yeah.
now it's a show called After, I think, Dark Side of the Ring. I did that with Jimmy Hart. We filmed this a couple of days ago. It's showing, I think, next week, with Tugboat. Fred, I can't remember his last name.
Ottoman or something, I think.
Yeah. And Jimmy Hart and me and him live, and that's another thing that's going around the world. Like, it's going to be seen. So, to be honest with you, Devin, if you have a little, I think you have a little bit of me in you. I hope it's the good part, but I also want Vince to see me.
Oh yeah.
I want Vince to see that there is life after WWF. It doesn't stop there. There's life, and which all the boys in my time and my era thought that if you're not in the WWF, you're done. There's nothing left. But it's not like that. And so I wanted Vince. I'm glad if Vince sees me now, left and right, and all, and I'm in great shape. I'm not bragging, I swear, Evan, but I work out. I work out every day. And squats, push-ups, and then because we can't go in any gyms around here now, it's all closed. But I do my elastic for my biceps, my traps, and my last and full squats to the ground, and I'm having a great time. I'm seeing muscles in me that I didn't know existed still, but it's all good. So for me to be seen like that, the exposure, and seeing Jimmy again, it was fun too, and Tugboat. So yeah, it was a good thing for me, Devin.
You told a story in that Dark Side of the Ring that Dino actually contacted you shortly before his death and wanted to meet you. Do you have any
Oof.
insight on that?
Yeah, I have an insight on that. I have a couple of things, but I don't want to blow the punch on the story. But I want to tell you about this one. There's two things I'd like, if I have the time. First thing, I want to thank Dino Bravo for, although we were competing each other, I was trying to get his spot. He was the boss. It was hard. It was a hard situation for me. I like the guy. And when I was about 18 years old, Devin, I think you're gonna like this story. I think you've heard it a bit yesterday, but I'm 18 years old. We're going into this nightclub. I'm a young pup now. I think I know everything on earth. I'm the smartest guy that exists. And anyway, I'm at that time in my life where I'm untouchable in my own brain. And so we get to this bar, and I don't go in bars, Devin. If you know my story in life, I don't hang around bars. But at 18 years old, this is the reason why I don't hang around bars anymore. So we're invited, me, Raymond, and Dino Bravo, to go do a referee contest for a beauty contest. Like, just it's a beauty pageant. They want us. They're taking celebrities, to go and judge. And so, believe it or not, I'm 18 years old. I have some things in life. So we start drinking beer, and we're drinking. And I'm not a big drinker. So when I get to 4 or 5 beers, boy, I'm bigger than I was before I started drinking. And anyway, long story short is we're coming out of that bar and we're going down the stairs, and Dino Bravo's first, and then my brother Raymond's second, and I'm third, coming last. And I'm actually hanging onto the railing going down, making sure everything's okay. And Dino just lets out a word like, "Hey, that's a hockey player from the Nordiques," at the bottom of the stairs, and it was like 3 stories high, so we could see him from far away. And when he said that, I had the most obnoxious, the most fresh answer. Like it wasn't me in real life, but because of the alcohol. And I said to him, hockey players, and like an idiot. And when I got down to the stairs, Dino shook his hand for his hand, Raymond shook his hand. And when I went to shake his hand, just out of being an idiot, he said no to me. And when he said no to me, I said, "Oh yeah." I was really messed up. I said, "Oh yeah." And then I hit my punch there. My right hand's coming, and he ducked, and I hit the wall. And then he slid between my legs, and he pulled my head was starting to go down between my legs. I wasn't on the floor yet, and then Dino just stepped in, and Dino said, "Hey, that's enough." And then he pushed Dino. That was a mistake. And then Dino grabbed him by the hair and he drug him outside. And the guy had a really nice car, and he just ran his head into the car once or twice. I was so embarrassed, and I was ashamed for being seen like that. And all the boys the next few days were talking just like, "Hey, Dino saved Jacques' ass," but it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because from that day on, I never went back in the nightclub. And I never alcohol, like, I take a bottle of wine once a week, like everybody, but I never, and I didn't hang around the boys going to the dancing stuffs and all that stuff. And so that lesson, I have to thank Dino for that. And now the other thing I wanted to say about Dino, what was that thing you told me there, Devin,
That
about Dino?
you mentioned that he called you a couple days before and wanted to meet with you.
Yeah, yeah. So here we are. Me and Dino were not the greatest of friends. I got to be honest with you, Devin. We compete with each other, but when we get in the dressing room, we play cards. We always play cards. So it wasn't the best of my friends, but he was a guy that I liked. So anyway, long story short, is the night before he got killed, 2 nights before, he calls me up and he says, "Jacques." I said, "Dino?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "Can you come and see me?" And I said, to myself, I'm on the phone, I'm saying, Jesus, maybe he wants to do something nice for me. Maybe he wants to push me, or maybe there's something great for me out there. So I said, "Okay, Dino." I said, I can't go see you tonight, but I said, I'll try and do my best for tomorrow. And because I was in the middle of something, I can't remember what I was in. I was in the middle of something. And like I said, it wasn't priority. It was just a friend, and not a close friend, just a friend. But he sounded funny on the phone. He sounded like I was his friend. He sounded like I was his last friend. I swear to God, he treated me so nice. So the next day, I don't go. And so now we're 2 days later. I get to my gas station, and I tell the guy in the gas station, and Rodden comes out and he says to me, he says, "Yeah, boy," he says, "your friend Dino there," he says, "he got it good." And I'm looking at him like, "What are you talking about?" Because I'm on his way to his house now. And he says, "Yeah." And then he shows me the front page of the newspaper from one end to the other, 11 shots in the body and 7 shots in the head. And then I'm saying to myself, it's a good thing I didn't go. I mean, it's a good. I'm not being selfish. I'm just being honest. It's a good thing I didn't show up there, like, at the same time as whoever did that. And
Yeah.
so that was really, really weird. But what can I say?
Now, you don't really have to go into detail on this, but I noticed Gino Brito was in that documentary, and at one point in time, wasn't he in some trouble for some loan sharking related stuff as well?
Yeah, and we discovered so many things about Dino in this thing, because I didn't know Dino was a long shot. I didn't thought Dino would put himself in a position to go collect money for people that owe money. I never thought that. But, that was the thing that I explained also, was like, you know, it was hard for Dino when he had to start doing jobs for middle guys, and when he wasn't used like he wanted to be used, because he was a booker in Montreal. He used to create his character. He was the king. But like in the card of decks, I always compare, when you're a Jack, you're not a king, and you don't run the business. Vince run the business. He was just a number, and he had a hard time when he had to dye his hair blonde. You know, in Montreal, there's a whole area in Montreal that it's Italians, old Italy and stuff, and you don't see no Italians with blonde hair, not in those days. So he was embarrassed, Dino. He was a guy like you, Dino. I know Kevin, and Dino's a tough guy too, and so I don't think I think you could relate very much to him being a tough Italian and a nephew of the mafia, and he's got blonde hair, and he's getting beat by middle guys. So it didn't work with him. He couldn't stand it. So finally, when he gave his notice and he left, that's the sorry thing about a wrestler, Devin. If you don't learn how to recreate yourself, you're going to be in some shit, because you have not that much education, not that much of some other talent in life, to either an electrician or something, or so you don't have much, and you need money. And when you're used to having some money, like Dino was having coming in, he had to start doing some things. And I looked in that message yesterday, Dark Side of the Ring. It was amazing what his wife said. At the end, she said, Dino, I forgive you for the choices that you made. But every choice that you made was to save our family, was to feed our family. Was so I felt a little sadness, inside of me, because I was one of the lucky ones, and like you too. We turned around and we do other things, but he did make a wrong decision, and but I'll tell you, um, he he's going to be missed more now than he was when it happened, because he wasn't. The people was in a time where Dino wasn't well looked at in the WWF, so they kind of ignored him a bit, let's say. But when he had his company in Quebec, and there was over 2 million people that used to watch us on TV every Sunday mornings, he was a hero. He was anyway. All that to say that I've learned so many things in this documentary. I really suggest everybody to go see it too, Devin. I got to tell you, I've never seen any of those things. And when I was going to see it on Crave yesterday after the show, I saw the stories of Owen Hart, of Jimmy Snuka, and I know those stories. Believe me, I was there when it happened. All those stories. So I'm going to go see all those dark side of the ring stories. There seems like to be a couple of great, interesting stories to learn about the guys that we used to be with in the dressing room every night that we didn't really know.
Were you there that night that all that stuff happened with Snuka? Were you already in WWE?
Yeah, I was there. We were. I mean, I was close by or somewhere in that thing, but I know that. Then again, it's so sad for all the people, because Jimmy Superfly Snuka was a Superman, and used to do that crossbody block from the top rope. No one barefoot, no one could ever match. And what great talent, great charisma, and that was a side that we didn't know of him. And just knowing the stories that you hear about, like, I don't know, I never saw the podcast or nothing, but I know some things that Vince hid a lot of stuff, and you have to cover his boys a lot of times. And this thing that he killed this girl, that we were hearing that he killed this girl in the hotel room like 30 years ago, and that Vince put a shh with everybody. That's the only stories that I heard. I have no proof. I'm doing about, like, he put a silence to it, even with the cops. Like, Vince is a powerful man, and for 30 years that slipped. Like, they put it aside, and then Jimmy Snuka lived his life, and then finally, when they caught up with him, I think he went to jail, and I don't know if he didn't die in jail too. I'm not sure, or I don't know how that finished. I didn't see, like I said, the story.
I think they let him out because he was having really bad health problems, and they didn't actually finish the trial because they deemed him not fit to stand trial, because his brain wasn't all there, and he ended up dying shortly after.
That's you Devin, I'll tell you one thing: wrestling business is not a great place to see how the guys finish. Like, either because of steroids, or because of drugs, or because of egos, or because of self-esteem. Uh, it's amazing the stories that we hear with our business, how it ends. I don't know what you think about that, but.
No, I agree. And for you working for Dino Bravo, like you mentioned in the documentary and here, at what point did you stop working for your dad and start working for Bravo? And why did your dad shut down?
My dad didn't shut down, Devin. Our business was closed already. When Dino took the business here, it was with Gino Brito, Rick Martel, and Frank Valois, and Tony Muley. It was a new business, but they never went against my dad and my uncle. They were out of the business when they took over. Uh, say that question again, then, Devin, just so I
So it would
understand.
have been the Vachons that were against your dad, right? And then I guess Dino took over. I was just
Yeah,
wondering how it worked.
The Grand Prix Wrestling. Grand Prix Wrestling was against the Ledukes, the Vachons, and all those. Yeah, that was against. But Dino switched also, but that was after my dad and all that. But coordinate me, send me to where you want me to go with this question here, Devin.
I
I'm sorry,
basically
I'm having problems.
Basically, I just want to know what happened that your dad's company and the Vachon company closed and then this new company opened up. How did that happen?
Okay, okay, Devin. Well, I think you know the wrestling's a cycle. In small territories, I don't with Vince, I don't know. I can't. It's too big for me to compare. But in our territories, like in the province of Quebec, wrestling would be good for like 10 years, let's say, and then the next 10 years after that, they would hurt, they would die, and then it would come back up again. So in that big hole there, everything closed, the business closed, everything closed, and then the other company opened up. So, but it's always cycles in wrestling. I don't know if you're aware of that or if you've seen that, or it never stays hot, hot, hot all the time, and it doesn't work like that, huh?
So, how did you like working for Bravo's company overall? How did it compare to your dad's?
I loved it. I loved working with Dino, working at home in the province of Quebec. You know, like being at home almost every night, and being on TV every week, and being seen in a shopping center or a barber shop or anywhere, and people recognizing you everywhere. It was a great time. It was really a great time. But then after that, I I did. It's a little bit similar to Kevin Owen. Kevin Owen with what happened with me. So it's like I was trying to reach for that big position on top. I was like on fire, and I wanted to get there. And I told Dino, I went to sit down with Dino, and I told Dino, I said, listen, you're booking us on third in the main in the matches. There's 7 matches. You're putting us on, me and Raymond, on third. You're putting yourself in main event. But then when we get in the house shows, you put us in main event, and you guys wrestle on third so you could get out early and beat the crowd and go home. Well, we had to do the job of doing the main event, and so you're paying us for a third kind of match, and you're putting us in main event every night. And I didn't like the way that was going, and I also didn't like also the fact that Dino was in singles and Ricky Martel was in singles, and Raymond and I were the only tag team that was really well known in Quebec. Then again, we had always have a hard time getting the belts. Like when we did the angle with the Garvins, let's say an example. I'll just take one of the biggest angles we ever did. Me and Raymond against Jimmy and Ronnie Garvin with Precious. The first match we had, the Rougeau brothers against the Garvin brothers in the Montreal Forum, it was sold out. We never had a match. The bell never rang because they came face to face with the referee at the beginning, and Precious took her spray and she blind me with the spray, and they kicked our butts. I mean, me and Raymond, literally. And then my father came in the ring to save us, and then he got his butt whipped too because Jimmy Garvin took him in the Boston Crab, and Ronnie Garvin went on the top rope with a leg drop on his back. They took him out on crutches, not crutches. I mean on what you call it when you put people that are hurt there,
Oh,
a
stretcher.
stretcher, on stretchers. So they got yeah, so they got my dad out on the stretcher. So that was our first event. Never had a match. There was almost a riot that night. People were throwing chairs. They wanted to see the match. And there was such a big buildup. And the month after, it was the Saint Jean Baptiste massacre. On the 24th of June, the Quebec's birthday. Like on the 1st of July in Canada, the 24th of June is our birthday in Quebec. And so we had the revenge match. And after like 15 minutes of and all this attention put in this match, Now it was our time to get our comeback. We got our butt whipped, completely. So it was our time. And when we got in the dressing room that night, Dino says, guy says, you go out there and you kick their ass and boom, 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 boom. But he says, at the end there, Jacques, he says, I want you to give a low blow. And he says, they're going to disqualify you. It had no business there. It was our time of glory. We left with a stretcher and blood all over the last time. Now it was our time to shine. And as a tag team, there was no competitions. We were the only baby face of our tag team. But Dino never wanted to give me that thing that would, maybe he was a little nervous because I was becoming very popular. Maybe he just wanted to keep though. So that's the kind of relationship I had with Dino. And like anyway, I won't get into that, but one day maybe we'll talk about Kevin Owens. But it's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, you did have a fan that wanted me to ask you about a comment that he said about you, but I understand you don't want to talk about that just yet.
Devin, I'll say something about Kevin. Reminds me of me when I was young. I had an organization in Quebec where I was selling out all my arenas, a spectacle familial Jacques Rougeau. It was a family-orientated show. I had shows. There was 4,000 or 5,000 people in every show we had, and I only had like 8 shows a year. But I went and sold the tickets everywhere, and I went to see the companies, and I promised everybody you see on that card, the faces you see, they're gonna be there for the show, and it was special for me. And Kevin, he wanted to learn something else. He was with me for 4 or 5 years. I taught him everything I knew in the business. What a great talent! As far as talent, great talent. He was always there in the wrestling school waiting for everybody to learn. I taught to him because he was always ahead of everybody. But my rule in my company was, you work for me, you don't work for anybody else. And here's the reason why. A lot of the boys were pissed at that. But I was saying, guys, you don't understand. Especially like Kevin. He was a great talent, a great match on my card. I don't want you to go wrestle on Friday night in front of 50 people in a church basement and hurt your leg. And then we go in front of 5,000 people and you don't show, or you can't work because you did an indie for $50 or for some. So that was the reason why. It was only that when I went into companies, I had talent and I promised the talent would be there. And I didn't want any injuries to happen, because being in the WWF, I know that I had a lot of injuries. I've seen a lot that we didn't expect. We're never expected injuries. So that was how I protected my business. And then Kevin, he decided to leave. That was okay. The problem is the way he did it. I'm sure I don't need to get into that. So he came to my last press conference to announce a show that he was going to be there, which he never showed up, and he was already gone. And then from then on, he went to the WWF, who I had quite a few enemies in the office. Like, I left them. They didn't kick me out. I left them. And a lot of people held a grudge against me for leaving there. So a lot of the people in the office that were giving Kevin Owens a push, they were also putting him up to date on how I wasn't a good guy and how they were turning him against me. And they were having him go in promos. You could go into this, Devin, and I was hearing some stuff like, hey, Jacques, Kevin Owens just blasted you on one of the big shows, WWF. Like, yeah, I worked for Jacques Rougeau, but I didn't learn much. And we were working in a flea market. Can you believe that? School? And once in a while he'd show up. He's talking about me. Once in a while he'd show up. And that's when he was there. Sometimes he was there. Like, almost like he was insinuating that I wasn't straight. When he said that, it was like to myself, I said to myself, I never talked to that guy. I never did nothing. I never talked bad about him. But I said to myself, Kevin, there's a word in life that you're going to learn, and it's called karma. And what you send on other people, what you do to other people, it won't come back from the same people you did it to, but it's going to come back to you. And that's karma. And so I say to myself, to Kevin Owens, you're a great talent. You're a young pup. You were intimidated by some decisions you took, because you and me, we always got along good. Even the last night we were together, we shook hands. So from then on, if you decided to hate me and all turn against me, that was your business. But the bottom line is, to go and criticize a place like the Marché aux Puces Metropolitain in Montreal, where, Devin, I got to give you a scoop here, for 3 years, I'm going to say 4, but I'll say 3 years to make sure, I had a free rent there. It didn't cost me anything. I was indoor, and there was a big flea market. It was indoors, and people were walking, about 5,000 people walking in there, and they were seeing us practice. It was good publicity for us. But the bottom line is we had a place for free. And once you leave my little league and you go into the big leagues, you don't go nationwide to tell people, hey, that place, the flea market, could you imagine, and cut people down, because we were there to help you, and we created you, we built you, we did all that together, and you helped us, you helped me. And so I think Kevin, probably by this time, he's going to realize that I don't hate the guy. I like the guy. I really liked him, but I had rules in my company that had to be respected, and I didn't want a guy to go get hurt and not show up in my show. And so everything made sense and logic. I'm almost going to go as far as saying that maybe Kevin one day will even call me or send me a letter like, hey, Jacques, you got some right in what you said. Maybe I went a little too far, but that would be nice to get a message from him, because I did nothing but help that kid, nothing but help him.
He also said in an interview too that he trained me more than you trained me, and I can honestly say every single day I came there, you were in the ring training us. So I don't know where that came from either.
I think he was just trying to tarnish my image, and he had a great position to do it. He was seen worldwide. So he was making Vince happy and making all the guys who wanted to give me a shot. So he was just a messenger. But I think that he'll learn one day that he's going to be also the one who's going to be getting the messages, because it's each our own turn. And when they don't need you anymore, and when you become just a number, and then he has to come back home and face the people that he said things about me and stuff like that. So, but I'm an old man. Who cares, right, Devin?
And just for the record, I mean, you had a hand in my training. Jeremy Prophet started with you. Your sons, who are great wrestlers,
Eric
all three of them.
Mastricola was a great talent. I had a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
actually, all my guys, I got to tell you something. I wasn't brought up as a plumber. I was brought up as a wrestler. I wasn't 6 years old. I was in the ring with my family, just fooling around. And then at the age of 13, I became serious. And 42 years later, my career was over. So when I brought the guys in the ring, I always tried to find potential in every one of them to help them in which way I could. Um, but anyway, it's like I don't like. I really don't like to talk negative, but I want Kevin Owens to know that I like him. I've always liked him. I appreciated the matches he gave me, the effort, the time on time. He was always on schedule. He had some great qualities, and I don't think I deserved what he did and said to me about my company and my wrestling school and all the guys who went to scratch and try to make something happen. So, anyway, Kevin, I'll accept your apology one day. I really will, and it won't be just out of narcissist or being ego. It would be because I liked you, Kevin. We had fun. We laughed. You were a funny kid, and in the time, and so anyway, so that's my message to Kevin Owens.
And by the way, apparently in 2018 he made $2 million, so he's doing pretty well for himself.
Well, he did the right decision by leaving my company. I'll tell you that much. But the only thing is he should have done it in a different way.
And for anyone that doesn't know, you had probably the highest drawing independent shows in Canada for all the years that you did your promotion, and most of the time you were the headliner, right? And I'm talking 3 to 5 thousand
Yeah,
people.
but Devin, to be honest with you, there was no secrets to how it happened. I was doing conferences in schools against bullying because of what happened with the Bulldogs, and that lasted me for 20 years. I went into schools and I went to meet the companies to show them that I wanted to create a business where there's no kicks, no punches, no nothing, and it's accessible for kids that are 4, 5, 6 years old that want to see characters and Spider-Man and the clowns and this and Chewbacca and Darth Vader and all the people that I had in my show. But I didn't fill those arenas by just putting ads in the newspaper and just turning around and hoping people would live on my reputation. I went into every company door by door, and I explained to them, I need your help. I'm doing good for you in schools. I'm doing good for your families to get some good quality times together in a nice, respectable area. But I need your help. And all the companies were helping me. So that's why I was drawing so much people. I was doing all the work and going and doing it. It didn't happen by itself. So, but thanks for the compliment. And yes, it was all worthwhile, because when we had the shows in front of sold out arenas in front of 3,000 or 5,000 people, and even my last show I had in Montreal, what an awesome one with my three sons there. There was like, we sold
Oh God.
11,000 tickets. You were there. You did an interview with me at the end.
I
So,
did, and it was a great atmosphere in the building that night. The crowd was really, it was sad when you guys retired. It was I'm still upset that Cedric has quit wrestling because in my opinion, he has every single thing it takes to be a star other than maybe his heart wasn't into it quite as much, but he had the look, the size, the athletic ability, the name. So maybe he'll still change his mind one day.
no, but Devin, there was no one as hurt as I was, because, but their life belongs to them. And I was asking a lot of them for like 20 years. I was asking them to come to Montreal, an hour away from my home, every Saturday and Sunday to go to the wrestling school, and everybody was playing NHL Game Boy, and they were saying like they had to spend the whole day with me at the schools, and that it wasn't their passion. But for me, it was like 75 years of wrestling of the fourth generation, and we're going to try to make it to 100th year of wrestling for the Rougeau family. That was my goal, and to make that happen. So I was so disappointed that even for like a year after that, in August, I think it's going to be 2 years now. I was lost for a whole year. I'm starting to find myself, but JJ, you saw that 450 he did at the end of the
Oh,
match.
his
It's
ability
like
is
the
amazing.
complete amazing. And then even Emil, you see how much he was selling in the match. He had a job of selling, but what a great, I know I used to work with them at the wrestling school. They all had talent of their own. Cedric was the one I'd say that had the less talent of the three, but had the greatest body and look and talk. Boy, could he talk. So I've seen some guys in the business, Devin, I shouldn't mention names, but I'll just to put you in perspective. The Warlord, great guy, love him, but not the greatest worker. Ultimate Warrior, not the greatest worker. I've seen so many big guys that couldn't put one foot in front of the other that they made it. And if they wanted to, the WWF, if they really wanted to salvage the Rougeau name, they could have put him like Virgil with the $1 Million Man, like just to start him. And Jesus Christ, Vince, I have a message for you. You have 8 rings, I think, at your
Yeah.
wrestling school in Orlando, and so many great teachers. And my son, who could drop kick 6 foot in the air and could backflip and could do everything he did, if you don't like something about it, change it. But you can't take the Rougeau name and make it disappear like it's doing now. It's disappearing. You can't not put the Rougeaus and the Funks and the Hearts there's so many families the Ortons. There's so many families, second, third generation wrestlers that you can't just put aside like that. And a lot of people now, a lot of people are going to say, "Wow, Jacques was pretty obnoxious, or not obnoxious, but pretty conceited." But I'm not. But there's one thing a message I want to send across. Now that I'm not in the business anymore, I would like to say, I think uh, the Hall of Fame, the Rougeau name should be in there. I think if it's not for me and the Mountie Quebecers, or for Raymond, or my uncle Johnny, my dad, the 4 generations of the Rougeau family, it's tradition, and we're not even in the Hall of Fame. I find it so horrible. I cut myself talking to people. I'd never do it on TV, you say, but I'd call it the Hall of Shame. But that was just my own joke, because most of the guys that are there, they all deserve it. But there's a couple of guys in there that I think they're comparable to us.
Well,
That
there's
we
I always
participated.
call
I
it
was there for 10 years in the WWF.
right. And you held titles, and you look at Coco Beware compared to your career. No offense to
But
him, you
he was
held
good.
titles. You beat Hulk Hogan. You're one of the biggest stars ever in Quebec, but your name isn't in
Thanks.
there.
But it's hard that there's some things that are hard to accept. And but one thing in life, Devin, that I've learned, and I'm sure at the age you're now, you're a young old man, and you're a young old man, but you'll know that you never say never in our business. You never say never. And if I today was to get a call from a company, a big company, and would be a great position for either me as a manager with my son or something, just to bring the Rougeau name back, you can you you could take my life away, but you can't take my dreams away. And I dream every night of wrestling. You know, Devin, I go to bed at night and I dream of wrestling every night. It's stupid to say that, but I swear, 4 nights out of five, I'm in the main event somewhere, or I'm having a hard time, or I have a hard time getting to the ring because I'm late to my show, or I have all kinds of dreams about wrestling, and so it's hard, but I'll never say never, but I'll just say that Vince McMahon, you've made a lot of mistakes, and a lot of people made a lot of mistakes, but so did I. I made a lot of mistakes too. So there comes a time when you got to weigh things out, and I think that if the WWF, like in the old days, would like to to, to, to create a new wave in Quebec, there's got to be a place for Cedric, or a character, or even with you tag team, you and Cedric. You know, there's got to be something that they could do, and but that's not in their wishes. It's only in my dreams.
I think there was definitely something political there with Cedric because you look at the people they sign with no wrestling experience at all, with not anywhere near the look or name of his. And as you said, they could train him, worst case scenario, but they didn't even give him a chance. But all you can say is what you said. Maybe they'll change their mind one day.
Maybe one day, Devin. Maybe one day.
Because when you were in WWE, we're very popular in the US on this channel, but when you were in WWE, they weren't just going to Montreal like they do now. They were going to all like a lot of the main towns in Quebec, weren't they?
Yep, yep. They went to Quebec City. They went to a couple of big cities in Quebec. They were expanding, and but what can I say, Devin? When you're it's always like I said, it's like I said to Dino. When you're a Jack, you're not a king, and I'm Jacques Rougeau, so I guess I'm the Jack in the deck.
And you talk about your conferences on bullying. One of the known backstage bullies of WWE in recent years has been Bradshaw, and
Oh
Carl
yeah.
Willett told me, "Oh, there's so much on him being a bully." But Carl told me a story that I guess you had some type of altercation with Bradshaw over him doing donuts or something in a car. Could you tell us that story?
Okay. Well, there's two ones. I don't know if you're talking about the one with the Steiners or the one with Ludwig Borga.
He was. Do you remember Bradshaw? He's
A
like a
little bit.
Texas wrestler. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe it was so small you don't even remember. Carl Willett said you guys were all driving in Winnipeg and he was joyriding in the snow with the van and he was refusing to stop and I guess you had to get a little upset at him and tell him to stop and he finally stopped. Do you remember that at all?
To be honest with you, no, Devin. The couple of ones that I do remember, because it happened a few times. Shawn Michaels overseas, I had a little altercation there with Ludwig Borga in Winnipeg. I had an altercation, and that wasn't a funny one. I got to tell you this one, if you have time. I don't know if we still have a couple of
Sure.
minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to tell you this story. This is good. Uh, the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott Steiner, they just lost the belts to us on Monday Night Raw. Me and Carl, our first night in as the Quebecers, we steal the titles, the Quebec rules, and we become the WWF Tag Team Champions. They were so upset with us and losing their position, losing to us, and all that. So they start putting heat on us. And what they did one night, they went to because Ludwig Borga was a Finland guy, and he was doing boxing. He was I think he was a pretty tough guy. I think so. Anyway, he was scary. Anyway, so long story short is they went to he went to the gym, Ludwig Borga in Winnipeg, and the Steiner brothers came out and they took a knife and they cut his tires on the car to blowouts, and then when they left and all that, and then when we got to the in the afternoon, they called someone, I think called Carl, or I don't know how we got the news. You could ask Carl. We got the news like Ludwig Borga is going to kick your ass, Jacques, tonight in the dressing room. And that's what came back to me. And I'm saying, well, that's nice. Why? And then supposedly a black car went to cut the tires. The Steiners told Ludwig that a black Cadillac cut the cars, and that's the car that me and Carl had. We rented at the airport. And so he put the blame on us. So I got to tell you now, I already went through the thing with the Bulldogs, and I'm not a fighter, Devin, in life, and you know that by now. I'm an easygoing guy. I'm an artist, and so all that day, I was sitting in the hotel room, and I was saying to myself, today's not going to be a good day. I got to go wrestle where a guy wants to beat me up for something I didn't do. And I don't know the guy, but he's pretty ugly and he looks pretty mean. So I didn't have a great day that afternoon. I was kind of sweating a little bit. And so this is what I did. I got to tell you the truth. I called the office in New York. Was I chicken? Was I afraid? Maybe a little bit, but there was another reason. I called the office and I told them, I said, I just wanted you guys to know I was told that I was going to get beat up in Winnipeg tonight by Ludwig Borga, and that I cut their tires, and it's not true. I didn't do it. So I just want Vince to know that whatever happens tonight, I'm not the instigator. I just wanted him to know that. And when I got to the building with Carl, boy, we were primed, I'll tell you. And I told Carl, I said, listen, Carl, whatever happens, don't butt in. If I'm getting beat up, it's okay. But if I'm getting really beat up, then pull them off me, But I said, let things happen. It's got to happen. It's like that in our business. It's got to happen. So when I came in, I got into the dressing room. There was a Smoking Guns. There was Billy and Bart Gunn, and there was a couple of guys. I can't remember exactly who was there. The Steiners were there, and then Ludwig Borga was playing cards with Billy Gunn. He was playing cards. And when I walked in, don't ask me what I did, Devin, or where it came from. I looked at Borga, and I went from all the dressing room out. I said, Ludwig. And he looked up at me and said, can we talk outside here? So all the boys looked like, holy shit, they wanted to be shit disturbers. Well, it worked. So now it's like they're going to fight. They wanted to see that fight. They just wanted to get rid of me. I think they were just trying to getting their belts back, I think. Anyway, one way of getting them back. And anyway, so long story short is he walked out, and it's funny because when I told him he was sitting down beside me, I said, Ludwig, I said, I'd like to speak to you outside, please. And then he looked at me in my eyes, and I swear to God, my reputation with the Bulldogs was too big. Anyway, so he looked at me and he says, I'm not going out. And he says, I'm not going out. And I said to myself, wow, well, that makes me happy. I didn't tell him that, but I was saying to myself, phew. So then I looked at him. I said, well, I need to talk to you out there right now. And I said, don't worry. I said, it ain't going to happen. Nothing's going to happen, but I need to talk to you right now. So then finally he got up, and all the boys were waiting for the juicy. And as soon as he turned the door and turned the corner, I put my finger right in his face. And I said, Ludwig, you want to kick? I can't beat you. But I said, your tires, I did not touch. I don't touch people's belongings. I said, I don't do that. So I said, if you want to fight, let's do it. And he looked at me for a second, and he says, no, I don't want to fight. And my God, I was so happy. But that was one thing that really scared the hell out of me. And there were so many things like that in our business. I could go on and on, but it's amazing. The Steiners, that kept going, that story. And now we're in Europe. So when we get in Europe, and you know how the tours were hard in Europe because, you don't eat well, travel a lot. It's not fun. And so we're in the dressing room, and when they found out that thing didn't work with Ludwig, they took another approach, and they started insulting me, like, in front of the boys, like really treating me like a jabroni, and then no respect. And I was looking back at them, and it was mostly Rick. Scott was not in that. It was mostly Rick, so he started insulting me, and I told him, I said, hey, excuse my language, but I said, fuck off, just fuck off, because I'm not a fighter, but I hated what he did. The thing with Ludwig tried to get me. so I said, fuck off. And then he looked at me and said, oh, yeah, what you going to do about it? And when he said that, it's almost like two wires clicked in my brain or hit each other. I don't know how it came and where it came from. I swear to God, it wasn't in my plan, my match plan. I grabbed an apple that was in a basket on the table. And I turned around, and it was one of those red apples with five nipples there, the pear
Yeah.
apples there. And I just took that and I threw it at his face as hard as I could. And I'm only like about 25 feet away. And he looked at me like this, and there was a pole the size of my hand here. Like, I don't know if you see it, just a pole. And I hit the pole right in front of his face, and the apple exploded everywhere in the dressing room. And I looked at him and I said, fuck off. And I was like ready to fight. And I don't want to fight. I don't like to fight. And he just turned around like nothing ever happened. And then Shawn Michaels says, cool it, Draw, cool it. But I was so, Devin, I'm going to tell you one thing that's very, very important to me. If you give me the permission to say something personal about myself.
Sure.
A lot of people didn't know that. I didn't know that. But I'll tell you now, it's probably you're going to look at me like, what? But it's the truth. People that are Down syndrome?
Yes.
People that are Down syndrome? And then there's people that are normal. And right in between those two, there's a category, which I'm in there. I found out in life that I'm not the fastest guy, in answering and stuff like that. I got qualities, but I'm a little late sometimes in what people are talking about or jokes or people that are smart or intelligent. I'm that kind of guy, and all my life, especially through the things with the Bulldogs and all that, all my life, everything that happened to me seemed a lot bigger than a normal person would look at it. Like, every time like something I feel like there's animosity coming or so with somebody, I get really scared. I mean, I get really scared inside of me. I get really upset. It almost seems like I'm apathy. I don't know how you say that in English. If empathy, is that say? Can you say that? Like if someone feels something, you could feel it too.
Okay, yeah, like telepathic almost.
Well, not telepathic. It's more like if you see someone sad, you're gonna feel sad too. Like if you
Okay,
feel,
yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
I feel what people feel a lot. Their emotions. I captivate a lot of the emotions of people, and it seems a lot bigger. The mountain seems a lot bigger than it is, and life was hard for me. And sometimes when the guys would kid around jokes about the French pea soups and the French frogs and this and that, that would hurt me. It would hurt me a lot more than just if you'd say, I don't know, cabron, to a Spanish guy, hey, cabron, or how you call like Mexicans, they had slide names for them, it's like, or Italians, they wops and the this. But me, when they would talk about me in a different way, I don't know why, I was very, very touched by it, moved by it, and it was harder for me to overcome things sometimes. And I realized that in life with me, that I'm a very sensitive person, very, very sensitive. And sometimes I look back and I wonder how I made it for 10 years in that business, with all those egos and all those drugs and all those. I'm still here today, and Jesus, it's amazing.
And one guy that's not here anymore, unfortunately, is Dynamite Kid. Do you have anything to say now that he's passed away about that whole situation? You already told me in the last interview the whole story for anyone that wants to look that up.
Oh, it's worse. If anybody wants to know what really happened, that's one of the stories that I tell in all my conferences, every day when I go give conferences. I would just like to say, like I said in the last time, they were great workers. But I think Dynamite, being a small guy, not high, not tall guy, a small guy, he must have tripled the efforts to make it up on top, and he must have worked so hard. And before that match we had at the Madison Square Gardens, where we did a 20-minute Broadway with them, Raymond and I against them, before the heat started, because they were defending the titles in Madison Square Garden. We were just coming in as babyface. We were no names, and Vince didn't want to beat us. And that's the heat started there, I think, honestly. I just say I feel sorry for all the pain he's been through, for all the things he did. I think he paid it in twice, and I think that it's too bad for the family, his family that left him, and then the wheelchair and everything that happened to him. Um, I wish that I would have been their friends. I wish that I would have fit in with them. That's what I wish today. And I think of Kurt Hennig, also, who instigated that incident, also was part of that incident, who's dead also today. Before that, I played golf with Kurt. When we were on the road, we played cards. We were like a family, but there was, like every family, there was like arguments, and there was jealousy, and there was the hormones, and there was all that stuff. But in the bottom line is, even as people, not everybody knows this, but my brother Raymond and I, we haven't spoken in 10 years, I think, or something like that. We were the closest things that ever existed. And every time I do an interview, it's so funny because I always talk good about my brother. I always tell him like it is. And then sometimes, it's shit happens. And because of the bosses that try to put discord between us and stuff like that, and it caused some things that Raymond took some decisions. But there's not one day that passed that I don't speak about my brother Raymond.
Yeah, and he still speaks well about you, even though I won't get into that because it's your personal business. But it's nice to see at least you guys still speak well about each other in public.
What's fun too is that we're going to a Comic-Con in about 3 months. It's been postponed, and we're going to be signing autographs together. Me and Raymond. It'll be fun, but we'll have a lot to say.
Now, I saw a picture of a fan actually posted it yesterday of you and Carl Willett before a WWE high school show with this fan. Was it common for WWE to run high schools when you were with the Quebecers?
Yeah, it was because there was it was they weren't always prestigious, the shows, but what was prestigious about the whole thing was they had three towns every night. They had the A town, the B town, and the C town, and they put all the biggest Hulk Macho Man in the A town, and the B they had some good support cards, and then the third card, because Vince had a lot of talent, he had to put them to work. So he wouldn't make as much money on those shows, but at the same time, when he'd go on TV and he'd say that the WWF is in three towns at different countries every night, it made it big. There was some good things coming out of that, and I think mostly because it gave a job to the boys that weren't booked on the A and B town. They had a chance to go pick up a paycheck, and which we all appreciated at the time, because everybody switched from A to B to C town except Hulk and Macho Man and those guys.
When you came back to the WWE after your WCW run, is there any reason in particular why they didn't bring you back in the Quebecers outfits and instead they brought you back in those weird pale blue outfits?
I think it's this: when you go to and you pay something in life, you get a receipt. And I think that the moves that happened, the decisions that were took, and our falling out of me and Vince goes just at one place. It was the night that the Men on a Mission, WrestleMania 10. We were supposed to we'd been beat for 6 months. We just dropped the titles and to Men on a Mission, and we were getting beat everywhere, in every town, everywhere on the world by 1, 2, 3, a squash job. But Pat and Vince kept telling us for like 6 months, don't worry, Jacques, because at WrestleMania 10, you guys are taking the belts back again for the fourth time. And he says, we're going to make it's got the biggest WrestleMania ever. So for 6 months, we're getting beat. Even in Toronto, in Montreal, in my hometown, we're getting beat. People are saying, Jesus Christ, Jacques, you're because my merchant value was completely going down. And I was saying, don't worry, Carl. Do not worry, because WrestleMania 10, people are going to forget everything. And when it happens, we're going to regain our popularity and 1 hour before the show started, he changed his mind, and he wasn't going to give us the belts. So I went to see Vince, and I asked him. I didn't even ask him nothing. I was so pissed for 6 months getting beat everywhere. So he got us beat everywhere. He took all of what we were worth. He took it out of us. And I guess he was finished with us. He'd used us at the maximum of his what he wanted to. And I went to see Vince, and I said, Vince, I said, that wasn't the plan. Like he says, well, Jacques, he says, sometimes plans change, and he says, if we beat the Moms tonight, he says, who are we going to put you guys against tomorrow? And I said, Vince, I said, I looked at him on the table. He had his booking book, his big booking book, a big booking book. And I said, Vince, would you please look into your book and tell me how far you got my name in there? So he looked at me in a little grin. And so he opened his book and he started looking at the dates. We had like 2-3 months ahead, all the way to Israel and Jerusalem and all. I said, Vince, I'm going to finish all your dates. But I said, after that date, I don't want you to book me anymore. That's it. And that's when we went to WCW. See, everything happened for a reason. And then after that, they took us back, not because they wanted to give us a push and help us. They wanted to put us down into the ground real far. We were getting beat. When we came back, we were getting beat by, I don't know, I don't want to take anything away from anybody, but underdogs. We were getting beat by everybody. So we were upset. J.J. Dillon was there. There was a couple of guys that were booking that I didn't know, and I wasn't part of his family, that's for sure. So it was like it was a receipt that he was giving us. Like I was talking about, when you buy something, you get a receipt. And so it goes from far, far away. But today I could honestly say our relationship broke because of his word for 6 months, that we were doing jobs and losing our money value, and we're going to get it back on WrestleMania 10. That, like I said before, I'm a funny kind of guy. I take things very seriously and personally, and I work out every day. Sometimes you're getting beat in every town, but you go to the gym anyway. You want to look good to get beat. It's hard on the morale. You got to be at the best shape of your career, and you're getting beat. Hey, I remember the story with Chris Benoit, and then everybody knows the story now. But when he killed his wife, I think on the Friday, and he killed his son on the Saturday, and he killed himself on the Sunday. But I always thought to myself, this is my story. Chris Benoit was a guy who was champion. He was on top. They pushed him really, really hard. But like everybody else, you got to give your place. And when you start going down and you're on drugs and you're on steroids and you're on all kinds of things that keep you going on the road because that's your only way out, and you get home after 25 days, you haven't seen your family, and then you see your kid at the other end of the aisle, and you see him, so you start running towards your kid. You haven't seen him in 25 days. Lord knows I lived that a lot. And your kid, you pick him up in your arms, and then your kid looks at you and he says, Dad, why are you always losing on TV? And it's like the image of the kid and his father. But it's hard to deal with those things when you're not all there. And this is only my situation. I knew a lot of guys don't know how to give their spot. Bret Hart. I love Bret Hart. I worked for his dad many times, and he was driving the bus when he started. I love Bret Hart as a person. But as a businessman, he's horrible. Like he's selfish. And I've said that before, and he knows that. Let me just say what I'm going to, sorry about that. Okay. I just want to say that when I won the Intercontinental, get this here, hold on a second. Sorry about that, guys. When I'm not a technical guy here with the laptop, but anyway, when I took the Intercontinental title from him in Springfield, Massachusetts, that was the greatest night of my career. One of the greatest nights. So Vince brought us in the room, and he says, and Pat, he brought me in the room. I had no idea what was going on. I was fairly new. And then he said to me, he says, he brought Brett in the room, and then he says, Jacques, he says, we're going to put the title on you tonight. And then Brett, he just changed. He didn't want to do it. And his face, he didn't want to do it. And then finally, Vince, after almost twisting his arm, he said, so Brett says, I have an idea. He says, I'll go to the ring. Let Jacques go to the ring. And he says, when I go to the ring, I want the announcer to announce that I have a pneumonia and that I can't wrestle. And then Brett took the microphone. He says, I'm going to wrestle anyway. So in other words, I beat a dead guy. I beat a guy that had pneumonia. Instead of him just giving me my night of glory, And he was with the Hart Foundation, and he beat our butts every night. We went there, made them look good, but the match was good. That was the only thing that was important, is the match was good. And I helped Brett so many times. I built Brett as the Hart Foundation and that. But he wasn't like that, Brett. He didn't return the favor like that. Why am I telling you all this, Devin? Where am I going with this? Do you know?
I don't know why you brought that one up. I
Yeah,
guess
well,
just the importance of doing your job when you're told and having it back and forth. If someone puts you over, you got to
it's
pay
all.
them.
I guess as you see, I get very emotional when I think about those times, because you know what, Devin, wrestling is my life. Um, it was a bad year for me last year when my kids quit and my dad died, and my dad was my best friend, and everything from the beginning of times for me. I remember that everything I did in life, I wanted to get a pat on my back from my dad. That's the kind of guy I was, and every week I'd call him. My dad would call me every week, and he'd say something like, "Hey Jacques, your grass is getting pretty long there," and I said, "Okay, I'll put the lawnmower." Like he was almost like supervising me all my life. Like always putting his 2 cents, giving me advice, and all that. And when he died last year, it was a bad year for me. I lost my business. I lost my wrestling school. I quit doing conferences in schools. I lost a lot in life because I lost wrestling. And I have a friend. We are talking about the Tennessee Stud there with his podcast, and his brother Robert was a dear friend of mine, a great friend of mine, and anyway, we lived a lot of wrestling. Wrestling is now once again there. I'm forgetting what I wanted to say about Robert, but wrestling has been my life. And without oh yeah, I was saying that because Robert, once a month, he goes and he does independent shows. He
Right.
still lives his dreams, and he tells me, like, when we call, we talk to each other, and then he tells me, "Well, Jacques, you wouldn't believe what I did this week. I went in the ring and I invited this girl in Dothan, Alabama, to come and sing the national anthem with the guitar. And then when she started playing, I started saying, I put my hand on my ears and I'm saying, Jesus." And then I took the microphone out of her hand and I said, "You can't sing like that." And then, but he's having fun. He's still having fun because, like me, I think wrestling is his life. And that's a big, big part that I miss very much. Yeah.
And Colonel Robert Parker, he actually managed you in WCW too. What was your memories of having him in your corner?
Oh my God. It was just too bad because we had nowhere to go, me and Carl. We weren't on that. So when he asked to be our manager, it was great because of our friendship. But I told him, on a business point of view, it's not a good deal for you. We're a losing team and we're going down. So, but Robert, when I went to this road trip last year that I did there, that I just came back from 5 months, I stopped at the beach in Tampa Bay, and we went to the beach whole day, and just the girls were talking together, and me and Robert were talking wrestling's Dothan, Alabama, where Joe LeDuc shaved my hair, and all the angles we did, and the things that we did. It was great seeing him again. Yeah.
He had one version of why it ended for you guys in WCW. What's your version of why it ended?
I just think Eric Bischoff didn't like us. That was, and I had too much ambition. I wanted to give a receipt to Vince for lying to us. I wanted to get back to him, but it wasn't in their plans to do so. And to be honest with you, there were so many leaders in WCW when I was there. Like Eric Bischoff was supposed to be the boss, but so many guys that were running the show. There was like 4 or 5 people that were running the show, and and I got to tell you, there's a lot of cliques in our business, and that and the people that got there, they were all cliques, and I love them so much. Guys, I love Sting. One group. We just came in from WWF. We were like no good, like we were the boys that were there. It was almost like, hey, you're coming. If you think you're gonna come and take our spot there, or you're wrong. So I don't know. There's many things I don't know, Devin. I don't have always answers to, and there's a lot of things I don't have answers to because, like I said, I made a lot of mistakes too in my career. So when you make mistakes and no one has the guts, or they just want to come and tell you your mistake, or if I'm too smart that I don't want to hear it, you don't know it. And so I'm not blaming everybody that what happens. I'm just saying that it's circumstantial. Uh, but anyway, it's life. No, nobody's perfect in our business, but I always could tell you one thing. I was a man that was a man of my word. I always dressed nice, always on time. I never missed shows. I always tried to be as professional as I could. And I remember the day I met Vince McMahon when we flew to New York the first time. Me and Raymond, we sat down, and I looked at Vince and I said, Vince, and I said, Mr. McMahon, I said, can I ask you a real question? How far are we going to go with you guys? If we come to the WWF, how far is the Rougeau brothers going to go with you guys? What's your plans? And he looked at me. A lot of the boys are going to laugh now, but he looked at me and he said, the sky is the limit. And and I said, okay, I want to go there. That's where I want to go. Oh, my God.
Now, Haku was in WCW with you. You also knew him from the Quebec territory. Do you have any memories of Haku you could share with us?
I love Haku. And anybody who doesn't love him better not get in his way. But I love Haku. One night, it's so funny. One night, me and Haku were, I don't know if, anyway, I think there was a little stipulation from Dino that night or something. He got in the ring with me, Tonga, and it was me and Raymond against Tonga and Richard Charland. You remember Richard Charland?
Oh, yeah.
And
You used
the
him on your
Magnifique,
show.
the Magnifique. Yeah. And so we were having a tag match, and the idea was I do a spot with Rick, and then I tag out Raymond, and then Charlotte tags out Tonga, and then Tonga comes in, and Raymond comes in. So they do a spot. So then I'm supposed to come back in now with Charlotte to do another spot. So I come in the ring, Raymond tags me, Tonga stays in the ring. And he looks at me like he's just standing in the middle of the ring and looks at me. I said, okay. I said, so I told him, I said, tag out. Like, I have a spot with Rick. For me, it's just to get back to where we were in the match. I said, tag Rick. He looked at me and he just started walking around and he looked at me with that glance in his eyes. And and before I know it, he went from in front of me, from behind me. He suplexed me on my stomach. I just landed like I was working. I was really soft and everything, but God, I hit that mat fast. And when I hit there, he grabbed an arm on me, like a little stiff on me, and I just laid there. I gave him my arm, like, do what you want. I don't even know why you're doing it. Listen to this, Devin. This is wild. He lets go my arm. I don't know if he realizes that he's hurting me or that he could hurt me or that I don't know what's going on. He steps out of the ring. We're a tag team match, and he starts walking towards the dressing room. And he leaves me from the arm bar, which I was selling. I think I'm not the only one who wires touch each other, but I think something happened, and I don't know what it is. And up till today, I remember 2 days later going to the Paul Soviet Arena where we get our checks on the Mondays, and I went up to him and I looked at Tonga and I said, can I speak to you with a minute? And he came right away. And then he says, it was funny because when he came to see me, he was like, hey, how you doing, Jacques? How you doing? He was really nice to me. And I must have missed a part. And then I told him, I said, Tonga, I said, did I do anything wrong or something? Why I became an airplane for like 5 seconds, And no, nothing. There's nothing. And it stayed there, and I didn't want to argue with him, but he was so strong. The way he picked me up, it was like I pick a pencil up, with my hand. He was, but from apart from that little incident, me and him are great friends. And if you talk to Tonga, I'm sure if you talk about me, he's got good things to say about me because I only have good things to say about him.
Yeah, he did tell me how much he loved wrestling in the Montreal territory, and he did like you guys. But I will ask him about that next time
Please.
I see him. Yeah.
Ask him if I potatoed him.
Because he did admit to us that sometimes he was the type of guy that sometimes, as you said, the promoter, if they had an issue with somebody, they might tell him, "Hey, could you rough this guy up in a match or something?" So, as you said, you never know what Dino could have said to him too.
And maybe it's not Dean. I'm just making a possibility, but I didn't know where it came from. And Tonga probably he'll know when you talk to him. But you have to tell him I like him. Make sure you
Oh
tell him
yeah.
I'm his friend.
And you had a fan that wanted me to ask you what you thought about the Ultimate Warrior and any memories of him over the years.
My father taught me one thing: you don't have anything good to say about someone, you don't say nothing.
All right. And the same fan wanted me to ask you about Randy Savage.
Randy Savage. You know what? In 1979, I was in Tennessee working for Nick Goulis, and we used to share 3 cents a mile to get in a car. We were four guys getting in a car. We'd give 3 cents a mile to pay the gas to go do the shots. And in front there was Angelo Poffo, his father, Randy's father, was driving the car. Randy was up front with him, and Lanny Poffo was in the back. I'm not sure about Lanny. I think Lanny was there, but I remember completely Angelo and Randy coming to pick me up, and it was Randy Savage at the time. But what was his name? It wasn't Macho Man then. But anyway, I think it was just Randy Poffo. I think his name was in the rest. I can't remember what name he used to wrestle, but it was Poffo. Was I think they were still wrestling under the name. He was a great guy. He was fun to be with. When he came to WWF, we said hello. We smiled to each other. I had an altercation with him one time in Halifax, Nova Scotia, uh, where it was all happening at the same time of a lot of things that were happening with the Bulldogs and stuff like that. I know there was a lot of animosity in the air, and uh, and I remember one time just looking at him and saying like, "What's wrong?" Like, but really like a threatening. I was tired. I felt like I was being intimidated. And he wasn't the same guy. You'd come in the dressing room one day and it would be like, "Hey, Jacques, how you doing?" And then he'd come up the next day and I'd say to him, "Hey, Randy, how you doing?" He'd say, "Fuck off." You were like, "Oops." There was some days like that with him. He was very, very he was temperamental, very temperamental. But on the average 10 years that I was there, I always got along good with him. But I also thought, and I make a joke out of it in my conferences and my humor conferences that I do. I always make a joke with Randy. I said, I said some people in our business had a hard time to unhook their character when they got home for 3 days. They didn't become the person that they were before. And I said it was so funny because one morning Randy Macho Man got up and Elizabeth told, "Honey, you want some eggs?" And he turned around and looked at me and he says, "Ooh, yeah." Anyway, but but so his character was very much he was very much involved in his character, and I think at a point in time he grew into that character, and apart from that, I enjoyed him. He was a good guy. I must say that it's a hard business to have. If you wanted me to mention some friends, I could mention some friends that are really people that I really like in this business, if you don't
Sure.
mind. Yeah,
Yes.
just say hello and say hi to Jimmy Hart for me. Jimmy Hart's the greatest guy. Tito Santana, the Bushwhackers, Marty Jannetty.
Oh, I
He
love
was a
Marty.
big
Marty was
boss
one of
man.
my best interviews.
Yeah, he's funny, huh?
He's
Great
awesome.
guy, always laughing. Great, great guy. Big boss man. Iron Mike Sharp. Great guy. He's always polite, respectful. There's a lot of good guys. Hulk's a great guy. So anyway,
Were
that's
you
about it.
back? Were you backstage when Iron Mike Sharp had his incident with Billy Jack Haynes?
No, no, I heard about it, but I can't remember it.
Okay. And another fan wanted me to ask you about The Undertaker. I know you've wrestled The Undertaker. I remember I have a Coliseum video. You're in a six-man with him.
I
But
had a
what's
match. I had a match with having a hard time here with my battery here. I hope this doesn't close. I don't understand why, but anyway, I got 10% left there, Devin. Just to
All
warn you.
right. Okay.
Okay, Undertaker. I got to tell you, if you guys want to see how I loved Undertaker, and Paul Bearer was such a great guy in the dressing room. What a great guy, Paul Bearer. Go see on YouTube the Mountie versus Undertaker, the match. It's it's with Sergeant Slaughter interfering. It's one of the greatest things for me, to be working with those guys. I loved Mark. Even when I did a show in Montreal, when I did that big show in Montreal with Hulk, I asked Undertaker, I said, "Do you mind coming to a personal appearance after the show?" I said, "I can't give you anything. It's just a friend of mine who has a place and he wants." "Sure, Jacques, I'll do it for you." And Ric Flair, a great guy. Ric Flair, I have some stories I got to tell you about Ric Flair. In Atlanta, Georgia, my name is Jerry Roberts. I changed my name from Jacques Rougeau. That's in 81, I think. I become Jerry Roberts because I'm getting beat so bad on TBS TV every week that I don't want the Rougeau name to be going around like that. So I get to the Omni on the Saturday morning, and it was TV taping, and then I see that I'm working with Ric Flair, a 6-minute match, and I go, "Wow, I'm the biggest jobber in the territory. My name is not Jerry Roberts now; it's Jerry Jobber," and I'm wrestling against the NWA champion Ric Flair, and we got into the ring, and he made me look good for 5 minutes. Drop kicks, backflips, all my moves. And then at the end, he beat me. And then I got back in the dressing room and I told him, I said, Rick. No, I didn't say Rick. I said, "Mr. Flair, I'm on like 19 years old." I said, "Why'd you do that?" I said, "You look pretty bad out there." And he says, "Jerry, let me tell you something. If I would have went there for 6 minutes, I would have went out there and swept the ring with you and beat you up and then beat you." He says, "Who would I have beat? Now I went out there, a young Quebecer, a guy who's got fire and he's a lion, a tiger, and he almost beat me, but I beat him after that. I'm better than him. I beat somebody." And then I realized what a professional this guy. What a top guy. Ric Flair was a genius.
When you were with the Rougeau brothers before the end of your run, did they ever suggest to break you guys up, have you turn on Raymond or anything like that?
They wanted me, no, but they wanted me to, I first went to WWF. They wanted me to be tagged up with Rick Martel, and then I said no, and then me and my brother, we stuck together the time that we were there. But no, I would never. I wouldn't have done an angle with my brother because I don't think I was smart enough to outcome an ending where we both look good in that situation. Uh, and it was just against, I guess, and I don't think it ever came up. I don't think it ever popped up because you got to say the truth. That Raymond and I, we were a hell of a team. Like, we could go out there and wrestle for an hour and marathon matches, and we knew how to work. So why split something that's working well? You know?
And for the Big Boss Man SummerSlam match, someone wanted me to ask you all the vignettes that you did for that match with you going to jail and everything. Was that recorded live or did they pre-tape those during the day and fit
Yeah,
them in?
that was taped early in the morning, and it was amazing because that was a pay-per-view. That was the biggest match I think I've been in singles, and it was a jailhouse match. And I remember that a couple of maybe a week before the show, and I was saying, "Jesus, I hope they put me over. I hope I get a win. That would be a great, great, great win." And finally that morning, it's amazing. I get the call from Pat or somebody, and Jacques, would you go down to the New York precinct? We'd like to do a few pre-tapes. And then when he told me that, I said, "It doesn't look good for me," because I had to do all the imprints, going to jail and put to jail, and so they were filming that early in the day. So after they put us on the first match that night, they started the show, I think, that night. We're supposed to be one of the second main events. They put us on early that night. So after a couple of matches, 2 matches going, then Mean Gene with Jesse the Body Ventura, they'd be by the ring and they'd say, Mean Gene, let's go back to the New York precinct and see how the Mounties doing." and they'd go on the giant screen, and it was a pay-per-view scene around the world. And every 2 matches, they'd go back and see me. But that was a great, great, great time in my life. And but that morning, I knew then that I wasn't going to win the match. But that was one of the most exciting things I think I've done in the business.
Yeah, you didn't win the match, but nobody remembers the match. People only remember your vignettes from that SummerSlam. And the
Remember that big
last,
guy? Oh, sorry, Devin.
oh yeah, I remember the big guy said, "Don't you just love the way leather feels against your skin?"
Amazing, huh? And then he goes like this. He's like that mean look on the face, and then I'm scared shitless. I'm looking up at this giant. I'm afraid. And then he comes close, and then he goes to me real close, and then he says, "Hi." And boy, people were all around the world saying that Mounty's gonna get it tonight. But anyway, that was awesome. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
those were the good days of wrestling. Unfortunately, it's not there anymore. But I know your computer's going to die soon, so I'll ask you this last question. I know your girlfriend's in the room, but you were very good looking in your younger days. You're still in good shape, but you were very famous in Quebec. All the territories are known for like their groupies. How was the Quebec territory back in the day for the ladies?
You're very funny there, Devin. I got to admit there, but you're catching me off guard with that question. But I got to tell you the truth. Yes, I was one of the fortunate ones. But I worked out. I put the chances on my side. But I always was a one woman lover. I always had girlfriends. I never went out one night with a girl, one night with another girl. I think I had a dependence and affection. I don't know how to say that word in English, but I always need to be loved, and so when I found someone that would match me, a girlfriend, and I don't know if I'm making myself clear or if it makes any sense, but so the groupies for me was not an important situation for me. Like, I loved the girls that wanted to get close to me, and it was great. We had great fans, but never took advantage of that position. Always respected our female fans that came and encouraged us, and they always were beautiful. I gotta tell you the truth, but I always was respectful towards my girlfriend. I'm blaming the girlfriends, blame this, but it was just the kind of guy I was. I never wanted to go in life somewhere, Devin, where people would say, "Hey, that guy, he's like this," or "That guy, he's no good with the girls." I always lived my life hoping that people will have a nice impression of me.
And of course, Quebec probably has the best ladies in Canada as far as highest
No,
percent.
no, 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 no. There's good-looking people everywhere, Devin. You know what? To me, a good-looking girl could be an ugly girl to you, and to you, a good-looking girl could be an ugly girl to me. I don't think it's
True.
important. I think it's the chemistry when it hits together. And there was beautiful people everywhere in Canada. Really, everywhere we went, we were always. I gotta tell you, uh, if you don't expect anything, you won't be hurt if you don't get anything.
Now, is there anything you would like to plug? I know you're not doing wrestling shows anymore, and I know the lockdown has screwed over some of your comedy shows, but
Yeah,
anything coming up?
I just want to say thank you to you, Devin. I want to say congratulate to you, Devin. I've seen you grown in the last years. I wish I would have been there more for you. I regret that. I do. And and at one time, there's question maybe of you and my son being a tag team, and I didn't push that issue like I should have. I'm guilty of that. I didn't. That wasn't the plans I wanted. I wanted the Rougeau brothers in there, and then you turned around and you just wiped your hands, and you're a great guy, Devin, and for you to acknowledge the things that you do, and you're a gentleman, and I'll tell you, and your reputation precedes you, and it's always a pleasure talking and working with you, Devin, and I wish you the best of luck, and I'd like to say hi to all my old fans that used to like to see me as either the Mountie or the Quebecers or the fabulous Rougeau brothers with little flags, and I want to say thank you to all your fans, because the fans sometimes they come and see us at Comic Con and stuff, and they always say, "Oh, thank you so much." They don't understand that if they wouldn't have been there, we wouldn't have been there. So we're a team. So I want to say hi to all my fans.
And I know one thing your fans would want to hear to close this off. Could we get one of the I am the Mounties.
Okay, I'll give it to you. Do you know who I am? I am the Mountie!
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.